The Boston Red Sox traded the face of their franchise on Father's Day, less than 2 hours after sweeping their biggest rival, in a game that he homered to reach 500 career extra base hits. Why? It's a long, complicated story that stretches all the way back to December 2024, so let's start there, and explore the path that got us to the most shocking trade in recent MLB history. Boston entered the offseason with ample money to spend, which should be the case every other year, but that's a different story entirely. The club had a few key needs: starting pitching, bullpen help, and a right-handed bat. Easy, right? Not so much. The Red Sox swung and missed on a few names that would have filled those needs. Max Fried elected to sign with the New York Yankees, Teoscar Hernandez stayed in LA after winning the World Series, and Juan Soto ripped the Band-Aid off after a few weeks of speculation and signed with the New York Mets, which we all saw coming from a mile away. So, how would they pivot? Red Sox Chief Baseball Officer Craig Breslow traded for Garrett Crochet like 3 hours after Fried landed with the Evil Empire. Aroldis Chapman highlighted a sneakily solid group of relievers that also included Justin Wilson, and in the biggest pivot of all, they finally addressed the need for a right-handed bat by signing third baseman Alex Bregman after pitchers and catchers had already reported. The issue? Rafael Devers already held down the hot corner, and he didn't want to move. The Red Sox didn't know what they were getting themselves into when signing Bregman, because even though he's one of the best bats in baseball when healthy, it set off a chain of events that led to Devers' dismissal. Devers made it abundantly clear that he didn't want to move off third in a now infamous clip during his first media availability of spring training.
What if they insist you have to pitch?
No.
Even if they insist?
No.
What about first base?
No.
Are you
Just third base?
Yes.
are you frustrated or annoyed with
No.
all of this
I'm good.
questioning?
No.
So are you saying if they ask you to DH, you won't do it?
No.
Can you expand on that?
I played third.
So
Oh yeah, let me quickly jump back to January of 2023 when Boston signed Devers to a 10-year, $313 million extension, and promised him that he'd be the third baseman of the future. I say Boston because that wasn't Breslow. It was former CBO Chaim Bloom who got that deal done. That's kind of important information. Back to January of 2025 we go, where Boston responded to its star's comments by lying to him. Manager Alex Cora claimed that Alex Bregman would be his second baseman, and even allowed him to take ground balls at the position a grand total of 1 time, before having him move to third base. Devers at this point was refusing to play in spring training games and had only done cage work. The Red Sox also wanted to get Christian Campbell valuable reps at second since they'd pretty much already made up their minds that he'd be there on opening day. Long story short, the Red Sox wanted their infield to look like this, and Devers was pissed. He'd been lied to, and while you have to admit that he kind of acted like a baby about the whole thing, he did ultimately give in and return to game action as the designated hitter. It's what was best for the team, so he settled into the role that Cora claimed would be his new long-term home. Until Tristan Casas went down with an ugly knee injury on May 2nd, rupturing his patellar tendon on a routine play at first base, which sent him to the long-term injured list for the second consecutive season and opened up another gigantic can of worms. The Red Sox now needed an everyday first baseman. And who did they look to? This guy. Breslow, likely with his tail between his legs at this point, went to Devers and asked him to change positions for the second time in 3 months, claiming that putting a below-average third baseman at an entirely new position after not picking up a glove since September was the best move for the team. Devers, in so many words, told him to go f*** himself. As you can imagine, the organization didn't respond too kindly to this. Red Sox owner John Henry eventually got in the mix after Breslow and Cora's words fell on deaf ears, hopping on his PJ to meet the team in Kansas City less than a week after Casas' injury and just 1 day after Devers made his refusal to move public information. Less than 6 weeks later, Devers was gone. If you're watching this video, you probably already know the specifics of the trade. Devers was shipped off to the San Francisco Giants for Jordan Hicks, Kyle Harrison, and a pair of prospects on June 15th, ending an extremely long road on a tarmac in Boston, where the most prolific hitter in recent Red Sox history was pulled off a team flight and told he was being traded. Boston evidently felt that the relationship had become untenable, and got out from underneath the contract before things devolved even further. So, where does that leave all the parties involved? Devers, Breslow, and Cora have all spoken since the deal went down, and unsurprisingly, the guy who pulled the trigger seems to have a lot more to say than the other two. Devers dodged the majority of Red Sox-related questions at his introductory press conference at Oracle Park, though he did thank Red Sox fans and the organization for giving him an opportunity back in 2013. Cora kept things very basic, giving a whole lot of nothing during his first few meetings with the media. Breslow, on the other hand, took questions for nearly an hour on the night following the trade, and let a few things slip that really paint the picture of how bad this thing had gotten. Breslow mentioned how the organization wanted to be deliberate in the environment they put their younger players in. Christian Campbell, Marcelo Meyer, and Roman Anthony were obviously the subject of that comment, which sent a not-so-subtle shot at his former slugger. He also, in a shock to many, said that he wouldn't be surprised if this iteration of the team ends up winning more games than if they hadn't made a deal, which in non-robot speak means he thinks they're better without Devers. We'll have to wait and see on that one. So, where do we go from here? Devers is going to the Bay Area where he's agreed to do whatever his bosses say. A pretty big switch up since his time in Boston. And that also includes playing first base, by the way. The Red Sox, on the other hand, were remarkably unmoved by the whole thing. Trevor Story, Jarren Duran, and Walker Buehler talked about how weird it was seeing the face of the franchise get pulled off a team plane, but other than that, the quotes in the immediate aftermath of the trade were pretty telling. Duran certainly didn't sound like a guy who was heartbroken over the move, calling Devers just one of 26. Buehler and Garrett Crochet claimed that they didn't need an explanation, which is the opposite of what I would have expected. It seems as though Devers' refusal to play first base did in fact rub his teammates the wrong way. Mass Live's Chris Cotillo was all over the odd clubhouse vibes throughout the last few months, and it appears as though we all should have listened. Where do I stand? There's a blame pie here, and it probably looks a little something like this. Devers was absolutely wrong for taking things so personally. Some of his quotes were funny, yes, but also pretty ridiculous when you consider the fact that he's supposed to be the face of the franchise. It sucks being jerked around, and I get that, but that also comes with the territory. You also aren't going to get very much sympathy when you turn around and do what you initially refused to do with your new team. Breslow is a lunatic for making this deal in the first place. You shouldn't be allowed to start a shitstorm by having the communication skills of a teenager, to then turn around and escalate it further by making such a shocking move. Cora also deserves his share. There seems to be a power struggle happening between he and Breslow, and based on some of the recent reporting, that has involved the manager of the Boston Red Sox actively sabotaging some of his young players to prove a point. If you told me that Cora wasn't being a good intermediary between Devers and Breslow, I wouldn't just believe you, I'd probably say that much was obvious. In the long run, this is a terrible move. You don't get better by trading your best player. You also don't make a very good impression by making a habit of it, which is exactly what they've done in recent years. It's time for a major change on Jersey Street. Do you need to clear house? No, not yet. But hard conversations do need to happen. Communication needs to improve. And for the love of God, just stop buying soccer teams.